If you recall my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles review, the expansion of the direct market, i.e. comic shops, in the early 80s allowed for the proliferation of many comic book publishers outside of the big two of Marvel and DC. One of the more prominent of these publishers was a Pennsylvania-based company called Comico.
Comico was founded in 1982 and based out of Norristown, Pennsylvania. Some of the company's most noteworthy titles included Elementals by Bill Willingham, who you might know from the series Fables, Evangeline by Chuck Dixon, who did Robin Year One. They also did several licensed properties like Johnny Quest and Robotech.
Perhaps the most noteworthy title from Comico was the first part in a 3-volume saga that chronicled the retelling of the Arthurian lore set in the modern age. The title was called Mage.
Mage was created by writer-artist Matt Wagner, a name you might recognize if you remember my old comic unboxing show. He wrote the Zorro series that popped up in that show frequently. He also did cover artwork for Green Arrow stories that are reviewed for this show. He also worked on Sandman Mystery Theater, a retelling of the Wesley Dodd Sandman adventures from the 1930s and 40s. Of course, his other noteworthy work would be on Jack Kirby's creation, The Demon. He was the one who introduced Etrigan talking in iambic pentameter all the time.
Believe it or not, Mage was not the first character Wagner created for Comico. That title would belong to Hunter Rose, a crime novelist who also doubled as a contracted killer for the Mafia, who was also secretly plotting to overthrow all of organized crime in New York City so that he could run it, under the identity of Grendel. Today, we look at the Grendel Archives, which collects the character's debut appearance in Comico Primer number 2, along with the first few issues of his ongoing series. Sort of.
Hunter Rose is called away from a party to receive a threatening phone call from a snarling detective named Argent. Well, the call is really for Grendel, but Hunter plays it off all the same. He slipped through Argent's claws before. Rose then slips into a nearby elevator and changes into his Grendel outfit. Grendel's target is the man throwing the party, City Council Chairman Everett Christie. The reason? Christie has been running a prostitution ring of underage girls. Christie pleads for his life and promises to stop the underage sex trafficking, but Grendel kills him anyway. Grendel meets up with some lackeys and prepares to make his escape, but Argent soon makes his presence known. He tosses 2 of the goons aside and prepares to take everyone else apart. Literally, for you see, Argent is part man, part wolf.
No, the character of Argent is not a werewolf. Werewolves are men who transform into wolves. Argent is like this all the time, and the reasons for that will be explained later.
Argent begins fighting with Grendel. The two are evenly matched until Grendel gets a wound on the monstrous detective. This allows Grendel to slip away and his nemesis to swear vengeance once more.
Okay, it's at this point we actually transition into the ongoing Grendel series, though that terminology is a little loose.
It's been a year since the Everett Christie incident, and Grendel and Argent are meeting on the roof of a building. Grendel unmasks, revealing his identity as Hunter Rose, and begins giving his backstory. His real name was Eddie, and he was a child prodigy whose elevated intelligence and physical prowess caused him to become increasingly isolated. The only solace he found was in the realm of contact sports, in particular fencing. While competing at a fencing tournament in London, Eddie met a 36-year-old woman named Jocasta Jackie Rose. She invited Eddie to dinner at her apartment, and the two soon became lovers. Eddie was 14. Jackie became the first love of Eddie's life, teaching him that fate was the opponent of life and that competition was the only weapon in the fight. Unfortunately, Jackie wound up dying of a terminal illness, a secret that she had kept from Eddie. Heartbroken, Eddie returned to the United States. Inspired to carry on Jackie's philosophy, Eddie sought out several mafia hangouts where he overheard various hits being issued. He then took out the targets before any other enforcer would. Adopting the identity of Grendel, Eddie soon came under the employ of mafia kingpin Theodore Ciccone III. To keep anyone off his tracks, he also developed the persona of crime novelist Hunter Rose, selling his first few works soon after. Then one day, Ciccone sicked several of his goons on Grendel in an attempt to learn the killer's identity. Grendel made quick work of the goons and turned to Ciccone. He revealed that he was in possession of several documents that could be anonymously turned over to the feds and take Ciccone down. With no other choice, Ciccone conceded control of his organization to Grendel. Grendel spent the next year rooting out the organization's seedier activities, like Everett Christie's sex trafficking. With that, he intends to start taking over other mafia groups to have complete control of crime in New York City. Changing the subject, Grendel asks Argent what his background is. Argent is much older than people realize. He was once part of the Algonquin tribe in what is now part of Ontario, Canada. The tribe was hit with a plague that the shaman claimed could only be dealt with a virgin sacrifice to the death spirit Mogulwai. The woman chosen was close to Argent. Not wanting to be sacrificed, she and Argent fled the tribe and lay together soon after. When Argent woke, his lover was gone and Mogwai was standing in her place. The Death Spirit then turned Argent into his wolf form, cursing him with both immortality and an insatiable thirst for violence in the process. This thirst has always drawn Argent to the most populated areas. When Argent arrived in New York City, he joined the police force, hoping to use his curse for peaceful purposes.
Ironically enough, Mogwai himself would wind up being killed when the Algonquin tribe was wiped out. A god can't exist without someone to worship them.
Grendel and Argent then began rehashing the events that led the two to being on this roof. It was 4 years earlier at the home of real estate mogul Barry Palumbo. Palumbo was throwing a party to announce a new real estate venture that appeared to be some type of swindle. In reality, Palumbo was working with Argent on a trap to lure Grendel out so the two could square off, which of course means Palumbo was actually trying to play both of them to the middle. While working with Palumbo on the plan, Argent developed a friendship with Palumbo's niece Stacy. It also turns out that Stacy gets along with everyone, including Hunter Rose. Stacy ran off to find her uncle to tell him of Hunter's arrival. It's then that a loud scream would be heard from Barry Palumbo's office. Hunter arrived to find Stacy standing over Barry's dead body. Hunter took the traumatized Stacy outside as word began to spread throughout the party and the police were called. He sedated the girl with the Vulcan nerve pinch and left her in a safe place as he changed into his Grendel outfit. It's then that Argent popped up and the two began fighting. Meanwhile, the police arrived at the murder scene where they discerned that someone spiked Palumbo's brandy with cyanide. They narrowed the list down to 4 likely suspects. This include Mallory Dexter, a rival real estate mogul, Jack Kitas, Palumbo's ex-partner, Rachel Coleman, Palumbo's ex-girlfriend, and the butler, because butler. An inspector turned out a bottle of cyanide capsules in Rachel's purse. Back with Grendel and Argent, the fight continued to carry over into a nearby park. As this was happening, a passerby discovered the unconscious Stacy and took the child to safety. So when Grendel managed to give Argent the slip, he discovered Stacy Palumbo was missing.
And that's how this thing ends. Due to financial constraints, Kamiko had to cancel the Grendel series after issue 3, though the character would eventually return in a series of backup stories collected in the issues of Mage. Why those aren't collected in this, I'll never know. As for the Grendel archives themselves, well, on the plus side, I will say this. Grendel and Argent are really intriguing characters. There's some good characterization throughout all of this. The banter between Grendel and Argent is very good, very strong. It's got a good crackling bit to it. And the artwork is, well, I'll say passable. It's very typical of the early 80s independent scene artwork. It's not necessarily bad, but you can see that Wagner is still trying to find his footing. On the downside, yeah, again, this thing ends mid-story. Why they couldn't just collect those Mage backup stories into this as well, I don't know. I mean, it was only 48 pages long in total, so I don't think this would have affected the $14.95 cover price for this thing. And yeah, I am aware that a major part of those 48 pages were actually recap, but you could just cut those recap parts out and put in the end of the story to, well, conclude the story. Also, there's no mature reader's tag for this, and there really should be. There is full frontal nudity in this comic. And no, I don't just mean Argent. Both Jocasta Rose and Argent's Algonquin girlfriend have very explicit nude scenes in this. And yet, again, no mature reader's tag. In fact, this is a problem Dark Horse seems to have with a lot of their comics. My Sin City volumes are also mature reader's tag free, even though they have copious amounts of graphic violence and nudity. I mean, yeah, because I've read them, I wouldn't give them to a kid, but what if a kid happened to come across them? You could get in a lot of trouble for that. Anyway, unfortunately, I really can't recommend the Grendel archives to anyone unless they're really interested in Grendel, and even then, it seems that most of those backup stories are available in other trade forms, so maybe you should just go there first instead. I'm going to give the Grendel archives a D. And with that, let's see what we'll be doing next time on the Random Trade Review.
can help support my work at patreon.com/sleepytimeforcatproductions, where you can request a trade to be placed in the randomizer, aka the cardboard box.